سال 1387 اولین بار که فیلم مستندم توی لندن نمایش داده شد حس عجیبی داشتم. کلی تماشاچی اومده بود. همه از من عکس می‌گرفتن. گفتم عجیبه، یه شبه من و تهیه کننده مازیار بهاری معروف شدیم. چقدر مردم لندن مستند دوست دارن. ولی واقعیت این بود که اونا از مجری برنامه جان اسنو عکس می‌گرفتن.
Night after night, ensure that channel volumes comes to you.
جان اسنو خبرنگار ارشد و مجری معروف برنامه خبری شبکه چهار بریتانیا بود. از جاهای مختلف دنیا خبر تهیه کرده و اون از اولین خبرنگارایی که در آبان 1359 با ارتش عراق وارد خرمشهر شد.
جان اسنو news at 10 خرمشهر.
جان اسنو توی کتابش که شاید ترجمهش بشه تاریخچه خبرنگاری جنگ، یک تجربه شخصی درباره گزارش خبریش از جنگ‌های مختلف نوشته. ولی فقط 2-3 صفحه از جنگ ایران و عراق توی این کتاب هست. شاید به همین دلیلی که غربی‌ها به این جنگ میگن جنگ فراموش شده. ایرانی‌ها هم بیشتر از 3 خرداد 1361 روزی که خرمشهر آزاد شد میگن. ولی روزهای آبان 59 تاریخ فراموش شده یک مقاومته. روزهایی که جان اسنو از سمت عراق این جنگ رو گزارش کرده. لندن رفتم تا به تهمونده خاطراتش نقبی بزنیم و هرچی که بعد از سالها به یاد میاره رو بشنویم. خودش از دیدن این صحنه‌ها حیرت زده شده بود.
Though the dockyard itself remained securely in Iraqi hands, the sound of artillery moving overhead from either side of the Shatt al-Arab continued as both sides battled for the rest of the city.
It was still the first flush of revolution and of this massive change from kingship to, a very fervent religiously driven society. And you can see it in the way the war was fought. So both sides had soldiers who were very committed to winning, even though they didn't like their leadership, which is a very confusing situation.
It's the second group of prisoners the Iraqis have proudly displayed, this time some 17 of them, some of whom had been captured in the port of Khorramshahr. All apparently regular Iranian army. They told us their orders still came from officers, but that mullahs were supervising the war effort in Iran. One of them told us he liked Khomeini before the war, but that if he was now responsible for 2 Muslim states being at war, then he wouldn't last after it. That there appear to be so few prisoners, we have seen fewer than 150 so far, would seem to confirm that little close face-to-face fighting is going on in this war. The apparently low casualties seem to support this too.
شاید هیچ کدوم از این سربازای اسیر باورشون نمیشد تا 8 سال دیگه ایرانو نبینند. همونطوری که کمتر کسی در ایران فکر میکرد جنگ اینقدر طولانی بشه.
It was hard to believe, and yet I knew because I had been there at the beginning. I had gone back occasionally, and this was one of the moments when I went back. And, it was a way of understanding what a long and bloody conflict it was. And both sides believed they were winning.
Yesterday it became clear that innocent merchant seamen had become the latest victims in the fighting. These Romanians had been anchored in the Shatt al-Arab waterway and told us they'd been deliberately fired at by the Iranians.
The first bombing in room of captain, the big broke, and second next ship behind, and third bombing in engine room and fire, and plenty with
Machine gun fire.
Yes, plenty. Yes. And another ship bombing, and the seamen jump in water and arrived in water. The Iranian with a gun
shoot them.
Yes, and when I see what happened, can I make for the ship? Nothing. Go in the water, and we arrived in the water. Another gun after us.
Their stories seem to confirm all too vividly that the war is still raging beyond the pall of smoke which hangs over the port of Khorramshahr. The indications are that the Iranians are still firmly dug in along the riverbank south of the port. The Romanians said that beside their own, 3 ships had been shot at, and that at least 5 Indian seamen had died trying to escape from their blazing freighter. The Romanian seaman's story appears to indicate that under pressure the Iranians are prepared to resort to very desperate measures, using the international shipping left in the waterway to try to ensure that even if Iraq wins it, the wreckage left behind will render it unnavigable. Jon Snow, News at 10, on the upper reaches of the Shatt al-Arab waterway.
I think twice we managed to go with the Iranians, but not for very long, and they weren't very keen to have us. Whereas the Iraqis, I think, felt that the propaganda war was important. The West was worried about an Islamic enemy in Iran, and so they were, a bit more interested in having the media present.
Pepsi-Cola's battered welcome to visitors entering Iran marks the point where Iraq's captured territory begins. The wrecked military vehicles here bear witness to the fact that in the early days of the war there was a battle for the customs post, but that the Iranians then fell back to beyond Abadan with their artillery ready to prevent the Iraqis getting further. Despite the vast weight of Iraqi artillery that is pounding at Iranian positions daily, Iran is gradually organizing the defense of what is left. Iraq is pouring literally tons of shells into both Khorramshahr and Abadan.
We seemed to be there, and we seemed to be having effect on the world's interest on this. And I think both sides wanted the world to be interested. And the world was interested because of oil. I mean, both sides were rich in oil. And a war between 2 oil powers was very alarming to the West. And that's why we were there.
The Iranians may have proved too late in their bid to reverse things here, but their concerted retaliation is beginning to have its effect. We were to be taken to visit liberated Khorramshahr by the Iraqis, but incoming Iranian shells hit a truck in our path and fell no more than 30 yards from our own vehicles. Chaos ensued, and we were forced to turn back.
Quick, boys, in. Lovely. Leave the doors open, leave the doors open. Open. Okay, go. Yalla.
There was no organised management of the media, not the way there is nowadays. And you could, if you were prepared to take the risk, you could go anywhere, and we did. We crossed between lines, we crossed between sides. And usually would think one side, discovering that you'd been with the other side, would want you killed. I mean, that you were a risk.
For a second time, we set off down the main road to the town, but again the Iranians were to strike. That is the second time in 2 days that we've been pinned down by incoming Iranian fire. All the evidence then that the Iranians are still holding out very strongly on the ground and using their own artillery to get back at that original Iraqi push. The spirit of Iranian defense in the face of the Iraqi tank power has surprised everyone, not least the Iraqis. And viewed from here, it looks unlikely the Iraqis will get much further. An almost fanatical defense has been fought for Khorramshahr itself, and day by day that defense on other fronts is getting better organized. Those of us who visited Iranian bases before the war know that they have the ammunition to carry on for a long time. They've learnt how to use it and are thus far from willing to come to any peace table until Iraq pulls back. Certainly the Iraqis are not yet securely enough in control of any Iranian center to dictate terms. And that was well demonstrated by the air attack that finally forced us to give up trying to reach Khorramshahr.
History in the making. And that's, I think, why our media organisations sent us and why Western governments were very interested in what we could tell them. Because very often our intelligence was much greater than anything they'd been able to get from the field.
These shells are destined for Iranian positions on the Abadan side of Khorramshahr.
بالاخره جان اسنو وارد خرمشهر خسته و زخم خورده میشه، جایی که ایرانی‌ها حاضر نبودن به این راحتی از دستش بدن.
Today's shelling seems to have cleared enough of a path into the city to enable the Iraqis to move into this side of it. For a moment, their troops are jubilant in the streets. Vehicles move up with more infantry to press further. Scouts on motorcycles have crossed the bridge on the outskirts to determine where the Iranians are. For certain, they are still in parts of the city. The Iraqi paratroop colonel leading the assault admits as much, but says his men have now secured the port. Occupy the port completely. Is it now Iraqi? And what about the town?
The town, there is another troops there, our troops.
Are there any Iranians?
They are from the tanks and the other troops.
Are there any Iranians still in Khorramshahr?
Some of them. You know, it's a very big town and too much houses, and some of them, they still there.
Suddenly, the Iranians on the other side of the city start pounding our position. Other Iranian shells are falling between the town and the Iraqi artillery we had just come from. That's as far into Khorramshahr as we can get for the moment. It's pretty clear that the Iraqis do control the port and a good part of the town, but the whole area is still very much in contention and only represents one stepping stone in what looks like still a drawn-out conflict. Jon Snow, News at 10, Khorramshahr.
That actually Iraq was very well armed and very well trained. And I think they really did worry that they could be defeated by Iraq. Actually, when you were there, you could say they could not be defeated.
Beyond the great pall of smoke at the southern end of the port and inland from there, the Iranians still appear to be managing some kind of resistance. But those of us who have visited the Khorramshahr warfront regularly over this past week detect a falling off in the amount of mortar and artillery fire that the Iranians are putting up. From the Iraqi side of the Shatt al-Arab waterway to the south of that same black pile of smoke that stems from the Khorramshahr docks, the sound of artillery and mortar exchange pinpoints the battle as being between Khorramshahr and Abadan and inland from the waterway itself. At Abadan's stricken oil refinery, there is silence. No indication of any Iranian defense here. All the signs are that the Iranian stand is being made inland and that if the Iraqis win the current battle, Iran stands to lose a considerable area of territory. Only the occasional Iranian sniper forces the small Iraqi garrison on this side of the river to crawl about with caution. The still burning oil tanks and the bones of wrecked ships bear witness to the unpredictable course of the war so far. Even now, no one can be certain that the Iranians do not have ideas for some unexpected counter-offensive. Only when the Iraqis have fully secured Abadan can there be any prospect of their being able to run the whole of the Shatt al-Arab, and it's only then that observers believe there will be any real prospect of the Iraqis being prepared to stop this war. Jon Snow, News at 10, outside Abadan.
آبادان هیچ وقت شکست نخورد. جان اسنو جبهه سمت ایران رو ندید. شاید باورش نمیشد که بخشی از نیروهای مقاومت این نیروهای ساده مردمی بودند.
برده اینا حتما بریم اونجا، همینجا پیروز باشیم، همونجا با میره ورزشگاه
ما هم هستیم. اگه ما جایزه بشیم ما هم هستیم.
بچه ها بودن زیاد بودن تو خرمشهر زیاد بودن. بعد